But this was a very bad book. I'll talk about that one after. Not worth your time. Read one of the other crap ones. Hello and welcome to That Book Life. Today I have a very exciting video. I suffered through 12 Hallmark-esque Christmas books. So these are the cheesiest, most romancy, filled with Christmas and holiday cheer books ever written, I would say, and they're all in the romance fiction category, and they were pretty bad. None of the writing stood out as good. I think the average star rating I gave these was 3 stars, maybe 2. There are only 2, okay, out of this whole pile and study group that I gave 4 stars. None of them were 5 stars, and I'm pretty generous with my stars, I would say. My average is like 4. If a book is good and it makes me laugh, it makes me smile, if the writing is impactful, always give it 5. So that's just to give some perspective. But if you clicked on this video, you are looking for either some roasting of some holiday books or some recommendations, and I'm here to give both. Alright, so I'm gonna start off probably in order that I remember them. I've read these over the past 2 weeks, and then there are 3 that I'm talking about that I read last holiday season last year for Christmas. So really I've read 9 this year and 3 last year, but I definitely remember them all. And my favorite one that I'm recommending I read last year. So this year has just been a miss for very many holiday romances, but let's get started. The last one I read on this list was A Season for Second Chances. Now this is by Jenny Bayliss, who I also read her other holiday romance, 12 Dates of Christmas, but we'll get into that a bit later. Now she's actually not bad. Not a bad writer. I don't love the dialogue style, or I guess the characters. It's very, very predictable, and you kind of know where the story's gonna end up 50 pages in. You know who she'll basically end up with, and I mean, these aren't mystery books. That's fine. We'll set that aside. Another thing I'll say is there are a lot of eye-rolling moments in her books where something will happen with the best friends or the love interests where you're like, this is a bit on the verge of unrealistic. Humans do not act like this. Real life humans on planet Earth don't act this weirdly or cringy. So there is some of that. But overall, compared to all of the other books, hers are above average. So I'll give her that. And there is a lot of Christmas cheer, especially her first holiday romance that had a lot of holiday cheer, and this one also does have quite a bit. And they're more set for, I'd say, older women. I think they would enjoy it more because the protagonists in her books are over 30, nearing 40, and me as a 19-year-old, I can't relate to a lot of it, but I still found it really insightful, and I do like her books. So that's that quick spiel on A Season of Second Chances. And as you can tell by the title, it's definitely they're both divorced, these people, they have kids. It starts off with like a big scandal, which I thought was really neat, and she's getting her life together, which I appreciated seeing, and I thought it was funny at moments. But again, sometimes these characters will act like imbeciles or like unrealistic humans, and that makes me roll my eyes. So I gave this 3 stars, and her other one, which I'll talk about next. So next is the 12 Dates of Christmas. This one I think I liked more than Season of Second Chances. This was actually quite sweet. She basically, the main character signs up for this blind date thing during the holidays where she goes on 12 different dates, 12 different places with 12 different men, and it starts off like the first guy stands her up, the second guy something fun happens, third guy, fourth guy, and so on. And I will say it's very predictable. She doesn't is that a spoiler? I won't say who she ends up with, but it is quite predictable. Again, there are some moments where I just can't believe her and her best friend talk like that. Maybe that is how best friends talk when they're 40, but my mom has friends and she doesn't talk like that with them, so a bit unrealistic dialogue sometimes. However, the Christmas cheer was really well balanced in this one. There were a lot of mentions of like hot cocoa and ice skating because all of the 12 dates she goes on are very holiday themed, but it isn't a slap in your face, whereas some of these are just I swear they mentioned snowman and snowflake on every single page just to make it a Christmas romance. And yeah, overall, I really liked the relationship between the protagonist and who she ends up with, so that's refreshing, because for a lot of these they feel unrealistic, again, because they're holiday romances and they're all super sped up. But overall, I think this is a pretty good one if you want a good recommendation. I guess I'll bang it out with the other good ones. There are only 2 more that I actually really liked, or that I enjoyed. But so the next one is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I read this one last year when I was in a Christina Lauren craze. And it was a bit dying down. I hadn't read their books in a while, so I decided to pick this up for the holidays to get back into them as an author duo, and I loved it. This is my favorite one on this entire list. If there's any book I can recommend for the holiday season, it is this one. The romance is very mature, feels realistic. However, they really let the holiday cheer shine through because they add not a paranormal element, but kind of like a magical element. Basically, the premise of the book is like a Groundhog Day type of thing, where it's a repeating day. So every single day is the same for our main girl, like it repeats because she hits her head. So that made it really fun. It added a little spunk to it and made it stand out from the others, and it also let some more unrealistic things happen while not taking away from the plot and making you think, okay, this would never happen in a real world, because the same day repeating every day wouldn't happen in a real world. So your mind is already kind of in that mindset of this world, if any of that made sense. But no, the relationship is great. I love the family relationships. I love every single character. I wish I could read more books about the other characters in this book, and I think that's quite rare. This author duo writes such good romance, and I really enjoyed it. This is definitely the one I would recommend if you want to read a Christmas book now that it's over or next year. And the last one that I would recommend for someone to read, the other ones I definitely would stay away from, I guess, is One Day in December by Jessie Silver. Now, this one is definitely a bit sadder as Christmas books go. I don't think it's Hallmark movie-esque. It feels like a Netflix Christmas movie type of vibes because it has sad elements to it, and it feels more realistic, and people drifting apart, and it follows them over a long period of time. They get into different relationships, but I liked it. It kind of reminded me of Normal People a little bit, not to that level, that extreme. It still has quite a bit of Christmas cheer, but it also goes through their seasons, so it really isn't super fixated on the holidays. You could genuinely read this book any time of year, and it would still feel like it's meant to be then, because sometimes they go on vacations and stuff. Anyway, I loved the relationship between the main characters because, one, again, it felt realistic how they met up. It's coincidental, but it could have actually happened. It's also set in London, which is my favorite city, and I liked the relationships between all the characters, and there are some plot twists where I really didn't see them coming, and that sometimes is quite rare in romance since it can be predictable. So I'd also recommend this one. All right, now going into the ones that just were not my cup of tea, I'll start off with the ones that I have in my hands, because there are quite a few that I read on my Kindle, so I'll just be talking. But I guess I'll start off with We Met in December by Rosie Curtis. This is 2 roommates who like each other, but turns out he's dating someone who lives on the floor above. And again, it goes, another December one, but it goes over a longer period of time than just the holiday season. It felt a little too sad for me. Her life was crumbling too much. It wasn't like Christmas holiday cheer or anything. This should have just been marketed as a fiction book, in my opinion. And I didn't really care about it that much. She was exploring London, which was cool on the perspective of, I want to go to London and travel, and that was a nice aspect of it, and they mentioned places to go. But as far as the romance went, I thought it was a bit weak. I didn't think he was that great of a guy. I thought the friendships with the roommates were a little iffy at times and kind of bizarre, but maybe some people would like it. Just this one fell short for me because I'd read it after One Day in December, so it almost tried to do the same thing of 2 people who like each other but aren't together, and it just did not as good as the other one. I also read 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis, and I really didn't like this book, but I think it's more of a personal thing. I don't like when they're very, very, very helpless protagonists. This woman's life is shit, and she doesn't do anything to make it better for herself. It's one of those cases where she's like, oh, I need to help everyone and of course be a good human, but it's to the point where she's completely butchering her life and hurting herself and not going for her own dreams and not achieving anything. And it's a big point of why she breaks up with her ex. It comes up a lot throughout the book, and I just think the people who are kind of holding her back should love her enough to let her live her life. And then at the very end, obviously everything turns out perfect and it happens, but it's so out of character because in the beginning everyone's being a bitch to her, and then all of a sudden they're really nice and want her to follow her dream, but in the beginning that was out of the question. So it just felt one extreme to the other. I didn't like that. I did not like the relationship because the guy was kind of in a relationship but not really. Their conversations didn't have that much context. Like, a lot of the time it would skip to the end of their convo, so you didn't actually read their character development or how they were falling in love, so that took away a lot of the story, obviously, if you're skipping over that part. Also, I don't get the title at all because I thought it would be like a cool 8-hour thing, but no, it goes over a long period of time. And yeah, just in all, I really didn't like it. Didn't like any of the characters, didn't like the romance. I just expected more. It was bad. Alright, I also read Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory. This one was pretty okay. I don't know if I would recommend it. I wouldn't want someone to waste their time, as bad as that sounds. I just think it was a lot of eye roll moments, okay, this was the most romancy. There was so much gushing over each other, each of the characters in love with the other one so deeply. Also, I'm pretty sure it is in a series. You don't need to read the previous ones. I haven't, but some characters are mentioned where I'm sure if you'd read the previous ones, you might feel more attached to it. Speaking of the main 2 characters, though, I don't know, it was I didn't care. It was overplayed how much they cared for each other so fast. It was very, very insta-lovey, and the end was extremely predictable, which is a lot of the case with these, but it was fine. And there wasn't that much Christmas in it, honestly. It was like the first 2 days of the book there was Christmas stuff, and then they just didn't mention anything about Christmas. Ooh, I also read Duke Actually and by Jenny Holiday. So this is the second book in a series. The first book she wrote was A Princess for Christmas. I'll talk about that one after. But this was a very bad book. I did not like it. This is being marketed so heavily this year. I've seen it everywhere on websites and in the bookstore. It's like the first one, which is weird because it's the second book in a series, and the first book in the series you cannot find at any bookstore. I could barely find it on Amazon. I ended up getting it on my Kindle because the physical book would come in like 7 weeks. Anyway, I didn't like this. I didn't like the characters. It was very unrealistic. It was super... So basically, the protagonist is this achiever, go-getter girl. She's got everything figured out. She's doing a master's. No, she's a prof, and she's going for tenure. The guy is a duke, and he's super rich from a wealthy family somewhere near Switzerland in the Alps. And they fall in love, obviously, and she's dealing with her ex-husband. It takes place in New York mostly. I don't know. It wasn't good. He really wants to bang her at the beginning, and she keeps saying no, and then they become friends, and then they end up banging. That's how I can summarize it. I don't like the characters, any of them. They're all quite annoying, and the writing just is very childish. That's the best way I can put it. The dialogue, roll your eyes. Everything that happens in the book, roll your eyes. The Christmas cheer, kind of there. They do talk about traditions like with her mom and stuff, but meh. No offense to the author. Now on the first book in that series, A Princess for Christmas, that one was even worse than Duke Actually. It's about a princess who is a princess all the time, not just for Christmas, goes to New York to meet her suitor or something, and then she can't find a cab, so this poor guy who lost his parents and he's taking care of his little sister, he has a cab, so he drives her to where she needs to go, and then he becomes his Then he becomes her personal driver while she's in New York, and of course they fall in love, and that's only like the first third of the book. Then they go to where she's from and he sees her country and he meets her awful evil father. It's Hallmark. It's just Hallmark barfed into a book, and I think that's the one where they make a reference to Hallmark movies, where he says like, oh my god, I'm in a Hallmark movie. It's either that one or Duke Actually. I know that author referenced Hallmark movies, and I'm just like, you know, your book is that, right? It's just the cheesy. You can feel the bad acting in the bad writing, honestly. That's what I'll say. So if you're looking for that but want to feel intelligent with a book, that series, that duo, is what you need. Alright, and the next one is Mistletoe and Mr. Right. This was too long. It was so boring. It's about a freaking moose and this little town and this spoiled rich kid, and they try and make her seem not like a spoiled billionaire. It was so bad. It made no sense. One, the plot made no sense. The little villager people had way too much power that they, in the real world, wouldn't have. Her family were a bunch of assholes and she didn't really do anything about it or stand up for herself. There was this one kid, Diego, who worked at a fancy hotel where she was staying. And yeah, she stays at hotels even though she's been living there for months. I don't know. It was bad. There was some Christmas cheer because they mentioned like Christmas lights and stuff, and lots of snow because they're in the mountain region. But yeah, the whole plot is that a moose is destroying Christmas and she's on the hunt to get the moose, because then the townspeople will like her and won't mind that she's completely changing their town and building a bunch of condos for rich people to go for tourism. So again, Hallmarky 100%, but way too long. Like, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your time. Read one of the other crap ones. Okay, I only have two more. The next one is Holiday Swap, and this one is pretty new. I think it came out this year, but this year they've been marketing it extremely well. Like, they've been really pushing it. It's basically the Christmas swap. It's like the Princess Swap on Netflix with Vanessa Hudgens. It is that in a book. There's a baker girl and there's a famous girl, and they swap. She's not a princess, but she lives in LA and she is a show host for baking still. And her twin sister has a little bakery in this nowhere town, and they swap. And obviously they fall in love. It wasn't bad. The writing wasn't awful. It was super unrealistic. The relationships moved way too fast. And the sisters were pretty annoying. They were not the greatest characters. They were flawed, but like perfectly flawed. They tried to make these perfect characters who were annoying, and like their quirks were that, what's an example? They surf. I don't know. Okay, it was weird. I didn't really like it. I thought it was pretty bad writing. That's just the way to put it. But lots of Christmas cheer, lots of baking. What else? The guys were cool. I liked the guys they fell in love with, each of them, but I didn't like them. And the last one was my most anticipated one, and it is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. And I have to say, it was okay. It kind of fell short, to be honest, but it was still a lot better than most of that Hallmark book crap. The writing is pretty great because Tessa Bailey is a good author and she's had a lot of practice. The story I didn't like. The characters I didn't like. What was happening was unrealistic, and how the main character dealt with her main conflict made me want to gag. So this was the one with really great writing and just bad everything else, I felt. I think genuinely she must have been rushed because it's not her level of quality for writing, or I guess for a storyline. So I think she probably decided last minute that she wanted to put out a winter one or a Christmas holiday book, and it's a novella. It's quite short. I couldn't even find it in bookstores. I got it on Amazon. It was like 190 pages long, I believe. It was okay. It was a good afternoon. I read it, but I'll forget it in the new year. It won't stay with me, whereas in a holidays I remember it basically perfectly, and it's been a full year, so that's where you can see the difference. But yeah, those are all the holiday romance books I read. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know I did not enjoy most of those books, But credit to the authors for going on this cash grab and trying, because some of them kind of succeeded. Happy holidays once again, and drink lots of water and stay hydrated, and bye!